Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Welcome into Soccer Morning right here on backheel.com. We are into the MLS season 2016. Yep, that happened yesterday. A full slate of 10 games. Look, it was great to get it all out there like that, to have this huge explosion of soccer on our Sundays from early afternoon on the East Coast until late at night. But let's not do that again. I mean, one time to start the season is fine. In fact, it was a great way to kind of draw a bunch of attention to the beginning of the 2016 MLS season. But can we maybe take it easy on the 10 games in one day thing? Because I mean, I'm tired. I don't. Are you guys tired? I'm pretty tired. But we're going to ramp up the enthusiasm and get the coffee flowing to talk about the MLS season today with Charlie Boehm from MLSsoccer.com and SoccerWire.com and many other places. You can follow him on Twitter at CBOEHM. So Charlie's coming up in a bit. We'll dive into everything that happened. In fact, let's go through the scores here as we get the news underway on a Monday. It started off with Toronto FC winning on the road at Red Bull Arena, knocking off the defending Supporters Shield winners, Red Bulls 2-0. Giovinco scores from the penalty spot. Marky Delgado scores on a counterattack, and Toronto gets the job done in New York. More than the goals, of course, you want Giovinco to start off well. Good to see Marky Delgado get a goal. It really was for TFC about the clean sheet. On the road, and they're on the road for their first 8 games of the year because of renovations to BMO Field. On the road in New York, a very tough place to go and open your season. They get 3 points. That's huge for them. NYCFC wins a shootout against Chicago 4-3. It started off with a pretty spectacular goal from Tommy McNamara. In fact, I think that was the first goal of the new season. Before Giovinco had scored in New York, Tommy McNamara had gotten things underway with NYCFC's first goal of the year. And if this is going to be the NYCFC we get all year long, man, are they going to be fun to watch. I don't know if they're going to defend it all, but if they can score 4 goals every time out, maybe don't need to defend. Orlando comes back with 2 goals in the stoppage time to draw with RSL at home in front of 60,000 people at the Citrus Bowl. So a big crowd on hand. Very disappointed, I imagine, to see their team down into the last couple seconds of the game. And then Kyle Larin scores a goal. Adrian Winter scores a goal. And suddenly it's a point for Orlando in their home opener. San Jose 1-0 over Colorado. That's Chris Wondolowski again. Clever little goal. I heard, did I get to watch much of that game? Again, 10 games, guys. I heard Colorado played relatively well, at least through the midfield, and maintained possession of the ball, but did not obviously come up with a goal to get started there on the road in San Jose. Houston 3, New England 3. Diego Fagundes on fire. Scores a great goal and provides 2 assists as New England comes back twice, I believe, to draw with Houston there at BBVA Compass Stadium. FC Dallas 2-0 over Philadelphia, as you might have expected. Now, the problem for FC Dallas coming out of that game is that Fabian Castillo left on a stretcher. We will keep an eye on the prognosis for Fabian Castillo, who would be a big blow if he is gone for FC Dallas. Portland 2, Columbus 1 in a replay of the MLS Cup final. Obviously, Diego Valeri with a goal, but you also had Federico Higuain getting on his bike and scoring for Columbus, but they could not overcome Fernando Adis getting a winner in Portland. Montreal 3-2 winners over Vancouver in Vancouver. No Didier Drogba, didn't matter. Ignacio Piatti is very, very good. 2 goals for him. Sporting Kansas City 1-0 over Seattle. A pretty soft goal given up by Stephen Fry leads to the loss for Seattle. They also had a red card to O'Neal Fisher that damaged their chances, and they had an injury of their own. Brad Evans, left with what looked to be a shoulder injury late in that match, so he could be a big loss for Seattle as well. And finally, the capper, LA Galaxy played like terribly. I was going to say they played like something, but let's just say they played terribly the first half against DC United. Gave up a goal in the first 5 minutes to Lamar Nago. Come back and win 4-1 over DC for their first 3 points of the year. Great day in MLS yesterday. Should throw this in as part of the MLS news. Colorado executed a trade on the eve of the season, sending allocation money and a first-round draft pick in 2017 to New England for midfielder Jermaine Jones. So Jermaine Jones has a new team. He will miss the first 6 games with that suspension, of course, but we'll see how he works in with the Rapids when he comes back. In the Premier League this weekend, because that happened too, Leicester gives their title dreams a boost with a 1-0 win over Watford, while Arsenal and Spurs played to a 2-2 draw in the North London derby. Arsenal damaged by a 55th minute red card to Francis Coquelin, which obviously changed tactics dramatically. The Foxes now are 5 points up on Spurs, 8 points up on Arsenal with 9 games left. Otherwise, in the Premier League, Manchester United Manchester United 1-0 losers at home against West Brom. City crushes Villa 4-0. West Ham now in 5th place after beating Everton 3-2 at Goodison Park. So that's quite a story as well. Barcelona has extended their historic unbeaten streak to 36 with a 4-0 win over Eibar yesterday. That was it on Saturday. It was this weekend. MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar scored their 100th combined goal of the season in that game. Watch the highlights of it. Messi is unbelievable. He has now scored 20 goals in 8 consecutive La Liga seasons. First player to ever do that. Barcelona is now 8 points clear of Atletico Madrid at the top of the La Liga table. Nobody is going to catch them. Now it's a matter of whether or not they can do it in the Champions League, which, by the way, resumes this week. I'm looking at the Champions League schedule. Obviously, Barcelona played Arsenal 2 weeks ago, but we've got tomorrow, Wolfsburg and Ghent, and Real Madrid and Roma, and then we've got games Wednesday as well. So looking forward to that. In Germany, Dortmund and Bayern played to an entertaining 0-0 draw, keeping the gap between them 5 points at the top of the Bundesliga standings. Obviously, Bayern Munich holding that 5-point advantage. Meanwhile, Hertha and Schalke maintain their spots in the top 4 for the time being. Former Chelsea physio Eva Carneiro is seeking a public apology from Jose Mourinho for her demotion from the first team after a highly publicized rebuke from the then Chelsea boss for her and her boss going on the field to treat Eden Hazard in August. This was the incident that sort of unraveled everything at Chelsea. It seemed as though Jose Mourinho was losing control of the situation and ultimately ended up in him being fired. But Carneiro still has pending legal action against Mourinho for constructive dismissal and sex discrimination. They have been trying to work out a settlement, but seem to be very, very far apart. So that's not coming anytime soon. So in the meantime, Eva Carneiro looking for her public apology. If no settlement is reached, the case is set for a public tribunal on June 6th, at which all statements must be disclosed and all witnesses, including Mourinho, would be obliged to attend if summoned to give evidence in public. So that could be fun, or just a complete and utter disaster that nobody wants to see. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we will talk to Charlie Boehm about the 2016 MLS season, which is now underway. Do not go anywhere. A full review coming up. Soccer Morning, backheel.com. we go.
Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, we're back on Soccer Morning. It is the Monday after the MLS season gets underway. 2016 MLS season is happening. We got 10 games yesterday. Charlie, that was a lot of games. Charlie Boehm joining us now on the line via Skype. CBOEHM on Twitter. Find his stuff at many places, including soccerwire.com. Hi, Charlie.
Good morning, Jason.
So, 10 games in one day. As I said at the top of the show, it was an interesting, fun way to start the season, but let's not do that again. Lots to cover here. And I guess we'll do this chronologically. I suppose that's the easiest way to go. This is a league built on parity, and I think that first day really kind of did show us how parity still reigns around here.
Yeah, a lot of road victories, some goals. I mean, probably the thing that people are noticed most immediately and were most pleased with was the amount of scoring. It was something like more than twice the number of goals on opening day last year. There's something thereabouts. A new record set for opening weekend goals. So that's not necessarily a sign of parity or the lack thereof, but it makes some of the other things go down more easily. But yeah, intriguing to see the different levels of preparedness and sharpness that individual players and teams have around the league, and it affected the results right off the bat.
Do you think? I mean, was that stuff obvious? I mean, there are some unknowns here. I mean, we're looking at teams that have fundamentally changed their makeup in some cases. Sometimes it's about emphasizing bringing in attacking pieces. Some cases it's about defensive pieces. In some cases, we've got new coaches or new styles involved. Let's start with Toronto going to New York and getting a 2-0 win. For whatever the Red Bulls did in that game, for Toronto to get a clean sheet away from home against the defending Supporter Shield winners, has got to feel good.
Yeah, very impressive result for TFC. You could argue a statement result in the sense that we always hear about their ambitions at this time of year. The last several years, it's been a similar narrative in the offseason, the proverbial offseason champs. But to go out and do it against the defending Shield winners, a team that's known for dictating the tempo in a very difficult way, especially on home turf, it was impressive, really. And they did stoke up a lot of pressure. They surrendered the possession battle. But they weathered and then they countered and got goals where they needed them. So impressive to see also this idea that TFC is going to be able to play different ways in different circumstances and adapt to conditions, because that's been an issue for them in the past.
Yep, and they're going to be on the road for 8 straight to start the year. So they need they need to get as many points as they possibly can away from home if they're going to have a chance at improving on their finish last year, which obviously was the first time they made it into the playoffs, but put them in a knockout round game that they lost to Montreal. I'm sure they would like to do better this year, and I've got people picking them to win the East and to maybe even be MLS Cup champions, Charlie. So the bar is pretty high for Toronto. Let's move to the other New York team and talk about NYCFC, because what was intriguing to me about what happened in Bridgeview yesterday was obviously we didn't know what Paunovic and Vieira were necessarily going to put out there. We'd heard some things in the preseason, a high pressing game from the Fire, a more open 4-3-3 from NYCFC, and we ended up with a shootout, Charlie.
Yeah, at first it looked like it was going to be a drubbing, a one-sided result, and the Fire found a bit of something late on, able them to close the gap and make it close in the end. But I think probably the dominant thing from that game is just some really awful defending on display. A very open game, which is its own problem, but just 1v1. I mean, Brandon Vincent, the highly prized rookie left back, just got absolutely scorched on one or several occasions, depending on how harsh you want to be. And and good finishing at NYCFC's end. Impressive work from the Colt hero, Tommy McNamara, and a semblance of order and structure and clarity that was so often lacking from that team last year.
Well, that midfield trio, McNamara, who obviously played well, scored a goal, looked added that fun element. Obviously, we got Pirlo in the middle, and then Mix Diskerud, who played pretty well, scored his own goal. How did that work? I mean, if you were going to try to analyze what you saw, depending on how much you saw, Charlie, is this something that can last them the whole year long? I mean, they're going to have to figure out a way to get Lampard on the field, of course, at some point. And maybe that the forward trio is going to change significantly at some point, and Poku and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, there's always going to be selection issues here. This team right now is better without Frank Lampard, it seems. A big part of that is this big question for NYC was how do you play Pirlo alone or nominally alone at the base of midfield and expect not to leak goals like a sieve? And because he's a very cultured deep line playmaker, but he doesn't have the type of teeth that you would normally want in an MLS competition. And with Mix, Mix's deployment there is interesting because we don't think of him as a destroyer or a grinder necessarily, but it is actually, he did the job yesterday. Although I'm tempted to look at a game like this as a bit of an outlier. But Mix has had to answer this question a lot. The last year or two, it's been a question for him. Well, can you be more than a 10? For example, the national team level. Yeah. Can you add that little extra component to your game that allows you to play more roles in the engine room? And he showed signs of it yesterday.
All right, so NYCFC with a big win on the road to start the Patrick Vieira era. As I mentioned, Chicago worth a watch because apparently defense might be a secondary concern, but also because they're going. How much of that, very quickly before we move on, how much of what happened to Chicago was a function of just a poorly implemented press?
Yeah, that's true, and the high line and all those sorts of things. We saw it in other games as well. That these are tough to get right off the bat in your first truly competitive outing as a group. And this is a completely new Fire team in so many ways: personnel, leadership, philosophy, all those things. So I'm going to give the Paunovic era a little bit more time. I think it's sure. I think he has to just look at that result and take away the fact that his team at least didn't get their butts whooped. They found something in them to rally and make it a competitive match. But certainly there's a lot of discontent in Chicago, and others in that city who are frustrated with years of failure are not going to be quite as patient maybe as someone like me.
All right, there you go. We're going to try not to judge any team based on one game, Charlie, but it's not really how fans tend to think. Let's go to, speaking of judging teams on one game, RSL up 2-0 going into injury time, and they end up with a draw against Orlando City. This is a little bit of both. I mean, complicity on the part of the RSL defense and playing to the whistle for Orlando City. But if you're Jeff Cassar, you're gonna be kicking yourself today.
Yeah, it's it hurts. It stings, I'm sure, for them, and especially given they had some heartbreak at the midweek in CONCACAF Champions League play, and then to deal with this really wild game. Though I didn't get to watch all 90 minutes, but what I saw was. Anytime you've got 60,000 plus in the stands, you're going to have a special occasion, and it's going to affect the players on both sides. It's going to affect the overall tone and the refereeing too. I'm not sure if it was great or terrible, but I'm not. I have a feeling most people's opinions will scant one way or the other. There, we had 2 red cards in this one. Some really questionable calls and confusing decision making by the refereeing crew. Yeah. So that's certainly just another sort of wild card in the mix for the road side. I mean, in a few weeks' time, I think RSL will look back and shrug their shoulders and feel okay with getting a point out of this occasion. But certainly a road victory would have been very useful for that team, given where they're at right now. And I think RSL, the question remains, and it's one that we can't answer today or even next week or next month. The question remains with that team: is the second 11 anywhere near what the first 11 is? I think they can be a cup competitor with the starting lineup they have, but there's a lot of age. There's a lot of tiring legs where, in that system, I don't know if the reserves are going to be able to keep up the same level. All
right, there you go. When you talk about MLS, you can't seem to go more than a week without talking about the refereeing. So there it is. And that's going to come up again here later as we get to some of these other games. San Jose 1-0 over Colorado. Chris Wondolowski with the goal. Is the takeaway, hey, San Jose got a home win and Chris Wondolowski scored his 110th goal of his MLS career? Or is the takeaway Colorado actually showed some signs of improvement even if they couldn't get their own tally?
Yeah, this Colorado team, I think, has the management, for all their foibles in the past, has made a clear commitment to renewed competitiveness and renewed relevance in a number of different contexts. When you're building a team over or substantially remodeling your team, typically you build from the back, and you want to create a solid foundation on which you can hope and be relatively confident that you're not going to concede many goals, and then you try and and add the flourishes in the attacking third. So from that sense, I think Mastroeni and company in Colorado have to be cautiously optimistic after this. There's still a lot of work ahead, but Gashi, their new designated player, shows some flashes of stuff. The Quakes probably showed us what we would have expected from them on opening day, which is that this is a Dom Kinnear team with a classic MLS goal scorer up top. They're going to grind. They're going to make things difficult for you. They flood the midfield at times, and there's always the menace of Wando up top, able to put one away, and that's what he did there. And I think they'll snatch a lot of points in this method over the course of 2016.
Old school MLS. Houston, formerly Dom Kinnear's team, 3-3 against New England. Star of that particular show, Diego Fagundes, or, excuse me, my voice doesn't want to cooperate, Charlie, or do you go beyond that?
Yeah, well, Fagundes was great, scored a Goal of the Year candidate 3 or so minutes in, and then he also had a role in both the other two Revs goals. So he was great, and I think Lee Wen was also pleasing to the eye and striking to me. A guy who's clearly bearing the positive benefits of the U.S. national team camp right now. He's sharp. He was clean on the ball for the most part in a way that many of his teammates and opponents were not. There was a lot of rust in this game. You can say there was rust all around opening day, inevitably. But talk about Dom Kinnear teams. His old team in Houston looks very little like it once did right now. This is a really open game, probably more open than either coach would have liked. A lot of transitions, a lot of end-to-end play. Scruffy in midfield in terms of the build-up play and turnovers there, but fun to watch. And both teams could have come away from this with a full 3 points and probably have reasons to feel disappointed that they didn't. I think there were 2 or 3 different lead changes as well.
So a 3-3 thriller in Houston with both teams getting a point there. The Revolution, I mean, Charlie, very quickly, the Revs made the MLS Cup final in 2014. We all had them tabbed very much, like we have Columbus tabbed this year as maybe the team to beat in the Eastern Conference, again, because they went to the final and lost. But the Revs underachieved last year. I mean, is that fair to say? I mean, obviously there are distractions and injuries and various things that impacted them. Are we going to see a resurgence of some of that attacking ability and something approaching, maybe a top 3 finish?
I think it's there for them, certainly. The issue is going to be, sorting out the defense. They started one of their newest acquisitions, Javon Watson, at right back. So he went right into the lineup, which tells you, he's a good player and a veteran starter in MLS, but it tells you a little bit about kind of the shuffle they have in the back line there. And they had a hard time, getting the press right, getting their offsides shape, and just in general, they were really stretched and out of kilter at times defensively. So, but what I was impressed with was their tactical versatility. Jay Heaps had hinted to me when we talked this offseason about some new looks, and I think they showed they were pressing at times. They went into a full press, trying to create turnovers in Houston's end on a couple of occasions, and then they would sit deep, and it seemed like they were a little bit more, I guess, a little higher level of collective tactical sophistication, which I think will serve them well this year.
All right, let's move on to the other Texan team, because the FC Dallas is also highly, thought of in this league, and a lot of people picking them to go and win an MLS Cup and meet their destiny, so to speak, with Oscar Pareja and that young group of players. Them beating, the FC Dallas beating Philadelphia is not a surprise, and the manner in which they did it, not a surprise. What you take away from that game most, Charlie, I think, if you're a neutral observer or an FC Dallas fan, is holy crap, what's happening with Fabian Castillo? Is he really hurt?
Yeah, that's the big question coming away from this. Oscar Pereira, their head coach, said he didn't think he was going to be out for long. It looked like a groin injury, as he released a shot. So could be a month. Worst case scenario, for a simple strain like that, it may be a little bit longer. I think the real hope is that they can dig a little deeper and make sure that there's nothing related to sports hernia or kind of that interconnected network of muscles in the core. If there's something like that, then he's looking at a whole different situation. That was the kind of injury that derailed Jermaine Jones for the better part of a year. Yeah, I guess the one bright side for Dallas is that if it happens early here, there's still plenty of time to manage it, give him time on the sidelines. And FC Dallas built their depth specifically for these kinds of situations.
Yeah, they've got other weapons. Although Castillo was great last year and was obviously important. I mean, we've seen what Barrios can do. I mean, Mauro Diaz can certainly carry more of the scoring load if necessary. And again, not going to take a lot away. No offense to the Union fans out there, but come on, we know where they are in terms of rebuilding. FC Dallas is supposed to be one of the best in the league. What other takeaways are there? I mean, again, they sort of did it FC Dallas style, and that just means we move on here expecting to see more of the same.
Well, the Union tried out a high line against Dallas at Dallas, which in retrospect was maybe not the wisest move. When you've got the kind of wheels that FCD has, and if you're going to press and try and compact space and leave a bunch of room in behind your back four, you'd better know exactly what you're doing. And very few defenses know exactly what they're doing on opening day in MLS. So that was one where Curtin got it wrong, and I think he admitted as much afterwards. The Union, again, it's a small sample size here. That's a very, very tough opening day matchup for them. I think they have a couple of really tough matches in the opening stretch here, but I think in a month's time we'll be able to say more clearly, and Curtin will have learned more about his team by then. But I'm not quite down on him just yet.
Maybe we just focus on. They were missing some players. I mean, Philadelphia came in banged up, which you never want to do to start the season. But maybe the silver lining is that Andre Blake played well, and they have a keeper, and maybe we can stop making jokes about the Union and their keepers. Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, let's do that. I'm ready to move on from that, and I think millions of others are as well.
Okay, there you go. No more keeper jokes for the Philadelphia Union. There, you heard it here first. All right, the rematch of the 2015 MLS Cup Final, Portland Timbers, Columbus Crew. I mean, what a game, and what a collection of goals, Charlie.
Yeah, Pipa Higuain produced a moment of magic with a really inventive, painfully difficult looking overhead kick to put Crew SC on the board there, and it looked as though they were going to be able to take points away from Portland. It was an end-to-end game, a lot of flow to it, but Crew SC were sharp. I mean, these are the two teams that have had the shortest offseason break of anyone. And you could see that. I think you could see there was a lot of continuity also. Yeah. And these two teams know what they're about, and they put on a good show. It's just Portland, I think, has the ability to finally they have this ability to make use of that great home field advantage they have. The fans and the team are now so kind of in sync there at Providence Park. I think they've multiplied what was already a pretty substantial home field advantage.
One of the things coming into the year for Portland was after winning the title, they said goodbye to Jorge Villafana and to Rodney Wallace. And the question was, can they replace those guys, especially considering they both played on the same flank, Charlie? Did you see anything that might indicate how well they're going to be able to move on from those two players?
Well, there's plenty of talent there on the wings now. They've got Asprilla and Milano, who were are fantastic players. Who I think the end goal for Portland is to sell them on eventually at a profit, and they still may do that. But those guys they show these moments of world class ability, and then there's times when they don't seem like they're really in step with the rest of the squad or not making good decisions. I thought it was funny. Somebody was saying Asprilla was taking people on as if that world-class goal he scored in the playoffs to help send the Timbers through to MLS Cup maybe is still on his mind. I don't know that he's capable at this stage of pulling one of those out in every 90 minutes. But he and especially I think personality-wise, he's got to find that right balance between the personality, the cockiness that you need to play that position at a high level with the good decision making that the system asks from him. So, and then Milano again, it's not certain to me whether that's his ideal tasking there in that role in that formation, but he's coming to grips with it. And I think, again, someone who needs a bigger sample size this season to see where he's really at.
The Timbers, like as you said, continuity matters. Obviously, the Timbers are a confident bunch, having won the title. And again, lots of people picking Columbus. In fact, I have them coming out of the East. So, if did you see anything from Crew SC that would indicate that they're not a favorite for any reason? Again, small sample size, but just out of the blocks here, Charlie.
Yeah, I think I picked them to win the Shield. So I think that the question for them is going to be the consistency. They were fairly consistent last year. They rarely lost. I think they only lost 2 games or more in a row on one occasion. So we'll have to see. But because of their style, because of the comfort with the ball, they're always going to be able to compete for road points in a way that many other teams can't or don't. The issue there, though, is again the exploiting that comfort with the ball and that adherence and devotion to possession. Crew do leave spaces in behind. They acknowledge that they leave those spaces in behind, especially when their fullbacks advance. And on a bad day, they get torn apart in that manner. So I think we'll be looking to the further maturation of Will Trapp. As another one of those guys who's going to have to deal with those kind of problems in the flow of play and deal with them. So another one where a couple of individuals I think are going to have a big effect on that process. And also Sauro, really influential center back for them. Didn't have the greatest of games yesterday, but over the course of the season, you expect him to be a best 11 player.
Okay. Vancouver hosting Montreal, losing 3-2. Ignacio Piatti picking up the slack because Didier Drogba is not going to play on turf this year, Charlie. That's that was the dominant storyline coming in for Montreal, and I suppose getting a win on the road in Vancouver, again a very good team in Vancouver, is good news for Montreal. Yeah,
and this is a team that didn't look like they were missing their star player and their most charismatic leader by any means. Damo Duro stepped into that lone striker spot, and position that he's looked not entirely comfortable or effective in the past, in the pre-Drogba days, but he did a pretty good job with it, and really impressive sort of understanding has already been struck up between Harry Shipp, who's just been in town for a month or so, and Piatti. Piatti scored maybe the best goal of the weekend, which is saying something. There were a lot of great strikes across the league, and they were comfortable on the ball. There was imagination. There was confidence. They were able to absorb some pressure from the Whitecaps, tune out a sellout crowd, and get a result really and very, really comfortable down the stretch. I was pleasantly surprised by this Impact performance.
All right, so and on the other side of things, I mean, I think Vancouver will be okay, but the problem with that they seem to have more than any other, Charlie, is being good at home. I don't get that.
Yeah, hopefully I've been waiting to see maybe when you have parity, right? And we all know MLS is obsessed with parity. Home and road is sort of interacts differently, and teams show their form or their quality or their lack thereof in that way. So I was a little surprised to see the number of road victories this week. I don't know if that's going to continue, but the great teams in this league, the ones that really separate themselves from the pack, are able to make good use of their occasions at home. I mean, you saw LA, for example. LA were really, really bad for a half or more, and they still come away with a very comfortable 4-1 victory. So I think that's kind of the gold standard there in terms of home form, and it's because of the sort of enforced irregularity of results over the course of a season in MLS. We don't see it as much as we maybe should.
All right, so we'll come to that game in a second, but there's one more to squeeze in before we get to LA and DC United, and that's Seattle hosting Sporting Kansas City, another road winner, and on a very soft goal. And I mean, so much there. The red card to O'Neal Fisher obviously changed the game, Charlie. I suppose we can throw Brad Evans into the mix, although that wasn't necessarily part of what happened to Seattle. What did you take from this one?
Yeah, a real howler. There's no way to call it anything but that from some Stefan Fry. And I think there's a fair amount of debate about the Fisher red card, but the guy went in with 2 feet. When you go in with 2 feet in that way, no matter what illusion may be created by this individual circumstances of the play, you're not in control. And it's already been stressed as a point of emphasis for the referees this year. So no surprise to see that card, in my opinion. And Seattle's got to be really, really frustrated because they worked very hard with 10 men. They probably should have come away with a point. But then, they have another individual letdown where Fry lets one squeak through from distance. And, great result for KC, a real confidence builder for a team that's got a few questions to answer and has both in terms of new faces and what the returning faces can do and how they can maintain their level. For Seattle, we're still looking at a team in transition here with a lot of new people in influential positions, and I think the 4-3-3 shape. While we look at it as, hey, you got three good strikers, get three good strikers on the field, right, as opposed to a 4-4-2, the problem is there's so much more to it than that. The defensive rotations, the shape, there's all work to be done there, and I'm still not sure also that Jordan Morris is really entirely comfortable or most effective out there in a wide right role in that shape.
Well, again, small sample size, and then one thing that we obviously have to note for Kansas City is that they didn't have Benny Feilhaber on the field. Also, Brad Davis not available. Could have been his sporting debut at some point last night. So when you consider the way Sporting typically plays with Benny, and this is a depth issue, right? I mean, not a lot of teams are going to have a replacement for Benny Feilhaber. I don't care who you are.
Mm-hmm.
How do they manage that? I mean, they get a win yesterday. I guess it doesn't matter. You don't look 3 points on the road in the mouth in MLS, but how do they deal without Benny Feilhaber when they go into a match, again, especially against an opponent like Seattle, who's probably going to have more of the ball and create plenty of chances?
Well, we see here, and this has been an ongoing feature of the Vermees regime in KC. This is a team that, again, another 4-3-3 dominated team that can play pretty soccer, that can stretch the field, that can suffocate opponents with pressure and with possession and movement. But the dark side is that 4-3-3 can very easily allow them to turn into kind of a pro wrestling team where they go direct. They go negative. They get stuck in. They dare the referees to enforce the fouls tightly and pull out the cards with regularity. I mean, this is a team that's not entirely uncomfortable, and I think Roger Espinoza probably embodies it. This is a team that doesn't mind rolling around in the muck a little bit and destroying the game. It's not nice for neutrals to watch. We'd rather see that the Feilhaber-led sort of bright side, but I think we saw a little bit of what they can do in a negative way that does get you results very often in MLS yesterday.
Yeah, they were up a man because of the Fisher red card, and I believe they still committed something like 19 fouls. So
yeah, exactly.
This tells you where Peter Vermees will go when things aren't flowing on the attacking end, and you don't have somebody like Feilhaber to put his foot on the ball. LA Galaxy 4, DC United 1. You mentioned this already. Galaxy looked abysmal for that first half, and giving up a goal to Lamar Nagel in the first 5 minutes on what was a pretty simple turnover counterattack situation. But I guess you look at the positives. I mean, I don't know where to go. I mean, we're still talking about Steven Gerrard. We absolutely have to mention Mike Magee and his excellent contributions, which turned things around. But the reason that Mike Magee's on the field is because Giovanni Dos Santos gets pulled off.
Yeah, well, I think NYC and LA embody this strange awkwardness of the DP era, where they've brought in players who are world class players that are getting paid $5, $6, $7 million a year, and yet it's not entirely clear that they make the teams better. That the 11 is better with Dos Santos than without, or with Lampard than without. So it's odd, but it's yet another quirk of MLS. I think that it takes real work and an individual adaptation on the parts of these players to make these sort of sometimes odd 11s fit together. It's still not clear how Dos Santos and Keane are best paired and best arrayed. Magee is just one of those guys that can come in and understand the flow of a game, understand what's required, and adapt very quickly. Just a cerebral player who's comfortable with the opposition, with the circumstances of the league in a way that Dos Santos still maybe is not. And of course, I think Bruce Arena had a few other things to say at halftime that changed the fortunes for a team a bit. I mean, they were able to disrupt DC. To their credit, this is not the grindingly attritional DC that we were used to the last couple of years. It's a team with some skill players that were able to combine. They were playing around and through LA for long stretches in the first half. They just didn't convert it into enough goals to hold off the rally.
Wow,
And
that's
kudos also to Ashley Cole, actually. I mean, a guy who's been pilloried, and in many cases justifiably, since he came to LA. Made a few really crucial tackles and was clean when he needed to be down the stretch to help keep it at one, in order to allow McGee to lead the rally.
Yeah, I think there was evidence of plenty of rust, as you mentioned, across the league, and especially in this game. And what we take away from it for either side is, in the eye of the beholder at this point. I don't know that the solution to the Galaxy season is, pull off Giovanni Dos Santos after 60 minutes and throw Mike McGee on, or I'm not sure when Mike McGee came on, to be honest with you.
Halftime. He came on
okay, well, he played a full half. I mean, and because I don't know. I don't want to get into the psychology of Gio Dos Santos, but that's part of all of this, obviously. There's going to be pressure to play him because of the salary, et cetera, like you just said, Charlie. The other thing here that I wanted to mention when it came to DC United was you talked about it. They can combine, they can pass the ball around the midfield a little bit. They did a decent job of it. I think it helps that Steven Gerrard can't cover any ground anymore, but they couldn't find the goals that they needed other than the counter from Lamar Nagel. Are they going to get enough up front throughout the year? And again, not judging on one game, Charlie, but where do the goals come from?
This is an open question. I mean, they themselves have an issue where they do have a designated player, Fabian Espindola, who started this game on the bench. And then when he came on, he's so often over the last couple of years been really pivotal to everything good that DC United do in the final third. And Espindola was just off the pace. He wasn't sharp. He didn't seem to be in tune. There's questions about the meshing between him and Lucho Acosta, their new Argentine acquisition, who's been very good in general since coming over from I guess about a month ago. So yeah, it's United's are in a state of transition as well, and it's one that I think is that Ben Olsen recognizes his team has to be more proactive. They have to be able to keep the ball. They have to be able to play different ways, really, to compete in this league. But that transition away from something fairly simple and down and dirty to something more complex is not an easy one necessarily. And they still don't know what their best 11 is either. I mean, they've got a huge hole at the base of midfield with Perry Kitchen.
Yep.
Another one of their highest paid players, Halsey, the Finnish international, didn't even dress yesterday. Yeah. So that's now kind of a fire that's cropped up. We're not really sure what's going on there. So it's unclear what their best 11 is or what Ben Olsen thinks their best 11 is.
Charlie Boehm, follow him on Twitter at CBOEHM. Read his stuff at SoccerWire, MLSsoccer.com, USSoccerPlayers.com, wherever else fine soccer writing is published. Charlie's bound to be there somewhere. Charlie, appreciate the time. It's an extended edition of the MLS Review. Let you get back to your Monday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jason.
There goes Charlie Boehm. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Phone lines will be open. We'll talk MLS weekend. We can talk Cuauhtémoc Blanco's final game at Estadio Azteca. We can talk about the Premier League weekend, the Bundesliga, whatever is on your mind. Soccer Morning, backyard.com.
Welcome to Soccer Morning. Here's your host, Jason Davis.
All right, back on Soccer Morning. It is Monday. We do have a full rack of MLS games to discuss, if that is your want. Perhaps your want is to discuss the Premier League, where Leicester City is still out in front, and the two North London teams did not do themselves any favors this weekend, although you could say it's more about Arsenal right now, and that game was more about Arsenal and Francis Coquelin being stupid, and yeah, all of that. All right. Mentioning, I forgot to mention this in the news. A couple of things I didn't get into the news. One, from Robert, who wanted me to note the fact that Guatemala Blanco played his last game for Club America at the Estadio Azteca yesterday, or whenever that was. This weekend. It happened this weekend. Didn't happen last night. It happened this weekend. And also, Bo on Twitter mentioning that the U.S. women beat France. Shaky first half. Stoppage time. Beautiful goal from Alex Morgan, courtesy of Mallory Pugh. So the 17-year-old hooking up Alex Morgan for the win for the United States in the She Believes Cup. It's a cup tournament, right? Anyway. 646-832-3909 is the phone number. It's all about prep for Brazil. It's all about prep for Rio, provided that the virus doesn't get you. And I'm not making light of the virus. Let's take it very seriously. Zika virus, is that what it is? Yeah. And I saw some stuff on my time. I'd be curious to get O's opinion on this. And anybody else who is really deep and knows the women's soccer world well. What Bo makes of the kerfuffle between the three British FAs and the whole, can we send a team to represent Great Britain to the Olympics? Saw somebody saying, hey, send the English women's the English women's team and then put the Great Britain name on them, but then you have to get Northern Ireland and Scotland and Wales to all sign off. There's 3 or 4. There's 4. 4 of them, right? I can't keep track. They're all on the board of the IFAB. That's what I know. Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England, right? That's the 4 of them? Like Cornwall doesn't have their own FA, do they? I'm kidding. I know that they don't. 646-832-3909. Join me on a Monday. Tell me what you took away from the weekend, whether it was something MLS related, something down south in Mexico. Again, the Premier League, the Bundesliga, 0-0 between Dortmund and Bayern Munich. Missed opportunity for Dortmund, but hey, they played Bayern very, very tough. All right. Let's go to Al in Missouri. What's up, Al?
Hey, what's going on, Jason? I heard you earlier saying that you didn't like the idea of all MLS games being played on one day on Sunday.
No. That's not what Al. I was being all whiny about how much soccer there was on one day, and just trying to for 10 straight hours and all that stuff. I'm just don't listen to me at all, Al.
I know. Okay. Well, I like the idea anyway of it. I thought it was great because that's all I just did all day today. Just watch MLS games. But I came away with it. I thought this was one of the best open week seasons I've seen in a long time, especially when I saw Orlando City come from behind from 2 goals down past the 90th minute to tie the game like that. That was beautiful. When
over 10 games you average more than 3.5 goals a game, yeah, that's pretty exciting. I don't care who you are. I don't care what quality you're looking for. I don't care if you only think Barcelona plays good soccer and everybody else sucks. You can have some fun watching what happened yesterday. That's
yeah.
I mean, again, there were bad moments. The defending was lacking in many cases, but come on. 36 goals in 10 games. Come on, that's fun. Let's go.
Exactly. I think I saw there were some surprises and some disappointment. I think the biggest disappointment yesterday was Vancouver. For some reason, they just can't win at home.
I know. It's disappointing. I got them winning the Supporter Shield because if they had just picked up 2 or 3 more wins at home last year, they probably win the thing. I can't remember what their total points were, but they were close enough that if they turned some of those, because they were great on the road. And that's so backwards. Yeah. We don't expect that. So you take whatever it is that magic that you have on the road, you throw in a couple more wins at home, and now Vancouver's a Supporter Shield winner instead of finishing 4th in the West or wherever they were. They were second in the West.
I actually have them competing for the MLS finals between Vancouver and maybe them and the Red Bull.
Well, I think out west you got Vancouver and FC Dallas, or those are the chic picks. Although of course Portland has to be in the mix because of the way they finished last year, winning a title, and figuring out how best to use the Valeri, Nagbe, Chara midfield, which remains one of the best in the league.
Exactly. All right, then. Thanks.
All right, appreciate it. Thanks for the call, Al. Let's go down to Texas and talk to our man Nelly. What's up, Nelly?
Hey, what's up, Jason? You were talking about the Cuauhtemoc Blanco game, and that's one topic I wanted to talk to you about last week. You just made me remember.
Okay.
I was gonna say, last week I was watching the Mexican media just to see what they thought, and there was a lot of hate towards the federation because apparently Blanco was playing this game, a regular season game, while wearing the number 100, while America having another player under the same 100, while other teams accusing America of not being registered in time during the transfer window.
Oh, really?
And it was just all this, yeah. Apparently, America says he was signed in December, but other papers show that he wasn't. And then there's this whole thing of Televisa owning America and being partners with the Mexican Federation and money being put in. Some say money being put in, and not the seriousness of taking this game. And Club Morelia apparently also put in what's the word I'm looking for? Prove me that he was signed in and America couldn't prove that. It was a big scandal. And all the media of that week was just saying how the Mexican Federation is still, in a way, corrupt, that it's still being controlled by the TV networks, by Televisa, by TV Azteca. That they're always going to show favoritism towards the big teams like Club America and Chivas. And so it just goes to show that the Mexican Federation is still a little bit behind on those things, where I don't know if this sort of a thing could happen with MLS. I mean, they showed favoritism towards LA Galaxy in a way.
Do they?
Do they? Somewhat.
Do they?
Somewhat.
Okay.
And then I was watching the game too, and Blanco almost scored a goal, but there was no. Morelia wasn't playing any defense on him.
Do you think Morelia? I mean, that puts Morelia in a difficult spot, right? I mean, 43-year-old Mexican legend Cuauhtemoc Blanco. A guy whose passion for the game is unquestioned. He is representative. He is basically Mexico soccer soul, right? And maybe not everybody loves him. I imagine that if you're a Guadalajara fan, you can work up some hatred for Cuauhtemoc. But when he played for when he played for the Mexican national team, of course, everybody loved him. When you put him on the field at 43, and we know he doesn't cover a lot of ground anyway, and you ask Morelia to defend. I mean, who's going to want to go in and get stuck in against Cuauhtemoc Blanco when you're, you know what I mean? Like if you're a 25-year-old Mexican player, like why would you want? You can only be the villain if you take out Blanco, right?
Yeah, it looked sloppy when he was out there. I only saw the first half because he only played like 35 minutes. The defenders weren't even close to him. They were letting him just walk through. Another thing that we're talking about is how the TV network Televisa forced this on the president of America, Ricardo Peláez. And that's all they were talking about last week, how the Mexican Federation is so behind on things like that, allowing this player to play on a regular season game.
Yeah.
Now, it would have been an honor for him to play on another game, like a friendly game against Barcelona. Because, they're going to be also celebrating, I think, their 100 years this year. Doing something like that.
Yeah.
And I just don't think, too,
so weird.
What if Chivas gets relegated? The Federation is going to step in some way to help them not get relegated.
Well, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't think Jorge Vergara has a whole lot of friends, but of course he is a powerful guy. Thanks for the call, Nelly. I'm going to move on, man. It's a lot of Blanco talk.
All right, take care.
Look, I don't. It's the thing. Blanco is one of those players where, because of my national team allegiances, I kind of have to hate Blanco, but I kind of love Blanco at the same time. I have a very weird relationship with Cuauhtemoc Blanco. Let's go to Washington in New York City. What's up, Washington?
Jason, what's up, my man? How's it going?
Hey, congratulations on the opening day victory.
Yes. 4-3, man. There were times where I was screaming at the television, I got to tell you.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine screaming both in joy when the goals went in and then in horror when the defense when the defense collapsed.
Brian, I couldn't. The Frenchman, man, I could not believe that happened. I swear I was screaming my head off. I was hoping this is something. I'm just hoping that that's like a one-thing fluke. That's over. I'm hoping Vieira knows that the back four has to be stronger than that.
Well, yeah.
Because that's a high school mistake. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to relive it. We won. We got the 3 points.
You got
on the
3
road.
Points on the road.
The only thing is, I mean, this is with all due respect to Chicago Fire. It was Chicago Fire. I mean, if we're playing a stronger team and the back four makes those type of mistakes, we're going to pay for it dearly. So I'm hoping that because I think I saw a tweet by Vieira saying, I saw what we need to work on or something to that effect. So I'm hoping that is a good sign and Vieira gets on it because we really need it. Yeah,
I mean, you expect that against a team that knows itself a lot better than the Chicago Fire do under a new head coach, you're getting crushed in that situation. And
right.
and there's definitely not those gaps. I mean, again, watch the first goal, watch Tommy Mack and the space he has to turn and press the Fire back line basically retreated into their 6-yard box. That was, not that I could have scored that goal. It's a great goal to the back to the far post, Washington, but at the same time, you can't let a professional soccer player, I don't care who they are, have that much time and space to shoot.
Right. One other thing I wanted to bring up is I'm just wondering what your take is on people like I have nothing against, I hate to put it this way, but older players, right? So we have people like David Villa and even Pirlo who have been workhorses of NYCFC, okay? And then Gerard. I'm sorry, Gerard. Lampard. He got booed at the Playwright Pub where they were doing the watch party when they announced, he's out because of injury. I think he spent more time out than he has in uniform. I don't even know where to go with that.
Well, the guy's under contract, right? He puts the team in a difficult position, puts Patrick Vieira in a difficult position. I think that, and you have to wonder from a team perspective what the right thing to do is. If they're a better team without Frank Lampard on the field, then Frank Lampard can't play. I mean, he shouldn't play. Let me say it that way. And I would hope that Patrick Vieira has been invested with the type of power, the type of responsibility by the powers that be at NYCFC and higher up in City Football Group to make that decision no matter what Frank Lampard is making. Because if Frank Lampard prevents NYCFC from winning games, you fire Jason Kreis because you didn't make the playoffs. If Patrick Vieira says we're a better team without Frank Lampard on the field, you let him make that decision. But then you do have that problem. Now you've got a situation where the fans are going to be
$1 on the bench.
That's right. And this is not a league where you can justify that sort of expense sitting there not playing.
But anyway, like I said, we got our 3 points. I hope it's a sign of better things to come, and I'm going to be at Yankee Stadium next Saturday.
All right, there you go. Washington up in New York,
next
man.
Week, I'll be all horse.
By the way, Washington, this is not your fault. I don't think it's connected to you in any stretch. I don't want to put this on NYCFC fans in general, but please explain to me why I saw a photo of a group of fans with a banner that said something like, I don't know, whatever their name was as their supporters group. It wasn't one of the one. It wasn't the third rail. It wasn't one of the ones I know. And it said against modern football. How does that make any sense in an NYCFC context? Unless the damn thing was photoshopped, Washington. It just. What is that?
I didn't see it. I don't know what picture you're talking about.
I'm gonna go find this picture. I bet you Trevor saw it somewhere. I'm gonna go find this picture because it's amazing that there are these guys and where. I don't know. Whatever. I'll find the picture. Washington, thanks for the call, man.
Take care, man.
There it goes. MLS season underway for NYCFC. As they get 3 points over Chicago, let's talk some women's soccer. She Believes Cup. Aaron in New Jersey. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, how you doing? We had a good weekend.
Crazy weekend.
I wanted to to just talk about the Der Klassik, which was, I think, pretty awesome, and it's probably pretty easy to miss because the way Fox kind of moves coverage dynamically around all their stations, and you have to kind of hunt for things. But it was a pretty amazing match, and then also I just wanted to talk about the She Believes Cup, which I'm just kind of surprised just isn't getting more coverage by just kind of more of the mainstream, sports media, and then obviously some of the soccer media, because obviously it's basically like a World Cup semifinal, between Germany, France, U.S., and England. I'm just kind of surprised at just the whole approach that both U.S. soccer and I'd say even the media has taken when it comes to this. I mean, they're playing like Wednesday night, U.S. versus Germany. It's like on ESPN 10.
Well, I know. What do you? I mean, I guess what are the alternatives, Aaron? I mean, how do? This is a new tournament. Obviously, U.S. Soccer decided they wanted to bring something in-house. You can call it a money grab if you want, but it's fine. They attracted the best teams in the world, or some of them anyway, while the Algarve Cup still goes on in Portugal, by the way. It is on television. Maybe it is under the radar in part because it's a friendly tournament. The U.S. women play a lot of games. I mean, how do you make it stand out?
Well, two things. This is something about, women's football in general that I've, noticed over the years, is that when the best teams play, it ain't much of a friendly. I mean, they play hard. I mean, it's not a cheese-friendly match when U.S. plays Germany or France plays Germany. I mean, they're playing for, their in some ways their preparation, and because of how stratified women's football is, you don't get a chance that often to play the best. You play a lot of kind of, tier 3 preseason matches when you're, one of the 5 or 7 powers. And, when you get a chance to kind of bang with some of the, the real monsters out there, they take advantage of it.
I don't know, Aaron, I don't know if there was a better place on the schedule for this, but I mean, Bo is pointing out on Twitter that, right now is tough. MLS getting underway, at least from a soccer perspective. You do have, you have other sports. College basketball is getting to its crunch time. There's for what that's worth, spring training is going on and taking away some attention. There's always NFL stuff in the air. Peyton Manning just retired. I mean, how do you do that?
Well, I mean, number one, I mean, the way they kind of, they put it in, Florida and Tennessee, which I think is fine, but then they didn't really kind of link it or tie it to anything. And if it's a money grab, I mean, let's be clear, the women's team from a return on investment is absolutely the best money grab the Federation has. I mean, the amount of dollars they spend and what they get back is, it's not even comparable to what they get from the men's game. And so, if you're going to do a money grab, then you do an effective money grab. You don't put the final of the last match on ESPN3.
Well, yeah, that's that's not U.S. Soccer's call. That's what I'm saying. That they can only work with what's available. And again, not that college basketball's tournament season is driving every conversation or even relevant in a soccer context, but it is, as Bo points out, again, eating up all of those broadcast windows. I mean, we've got to put the MAC Conference Championship on television. We've got to put the Southwestern East North American Atlantic Conference Championship on television.
No, and I would agree that when you look at some of the choices, and it was the same reason why, you had, Der Klassik on Saturday on FX.
Right.
Instead of on regular Fox, or, which was weird to me, on Fox 1, 2, or 3 when they were showing replays.
There's no Fox. Understand. There's no Fox Sports 3, Aaron. Don't make things up. That doesn't exist. That's not.
No. I mean, Fox Sports. There's Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, and that's the third Fox channel. So Fox Sports 2. The 419 on Time Warner up here. I mean, my whole point is that you just didn't have I think, a really smart approach to scheduling,
Okay.
which I think is really kind of something that you have in some of the networks, is they don't really get how to get good schedules together.
I'm not going to disagree with that. Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I just, coming back to the Bundesliga thing very quickly here, Aaron. Just and I'll pick your brain before I have to shut the show down. There's this notion out there, and I've seen this from several people that I guess what it is it anger or upset or just there's another word that my brain just does not want to pull up. People are offended that the Bundesliga doesn't do better on television, and I'm mildly confused by this. Yeah, it's a great league. There's no doubting that. This notion that just because the soccer is good, the product will do well, misses so much about what's true in modern sports broadcasting, not just American context, and not just in an American sphere, but around the world. I mean, the reason that and I want to go diving into this pool again, but the reason we're talking about the Super League isn't because those people in Asia care necessarily about the legacy and the quality of the league. They care about the bright lights and the shiny packaging.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that there's a let's put it this way, a modern marketing of the Bundesliga that's missing, and that's kind of, I think, some of the appeal.
Well, okay.
I would say
it's also
that between the Bundesliga,
it's the criticism
and what
of Fox
has done.
Yeah, it's the criticism. It's the criticism of Fox. I think that is not confusing to me, but I just think is misplaced. It's this thing like, oh, Fox is screwing up the Bundesliga. Well, wait a second, hold on. This is the first year that they've got a real national television partner in the United States, and I don't know. I mean, I guess there needs to be some understanding that this isn't going to be they're not going to put the game on him in their best window on a Saturday afternoon on Fox proper. That isn't business wise. That's like, that's a huge risk on there. I'm sorry. I don't even know why I went on this topic.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that I think they both believed if they just, kind of launched something, they were going to get some EPL kind of, spillover. And that's obviously pretty clear that wasn't going to happen. But at the same time, I would say that there's huge, kind of opportunities in special markets and special channels that they're not necessarily taking advantage of. There's obviously a love of Bayer Leverkusen by a certain segment of the population because they have a few players that are doing both really well and appeal. And obviously Bayern and Dortmund have, a slew of hard hitting type players that they can obviously kind of broadcast a little better. And then I would also say they can just build campaigns. I mean, people forget that the Premier League kind of, earned its way into, 500,000 to 1 million people watching, depends on the match, in some cases more. And I don't think you get that just by showing, random scheduled matches that you haven't kind of pre-gamed, preempted, kind of, in some ways kind of rolled out. And I would say the real test is going to be next year and the year after. And that's going to determine if Fox stays with the Bundesliga, or in some ways it goes to where I think it could have a natural home, which is being sports. And I think that's place like that.
Well,
where,
okay. Again, I mean, from a Bundesliga perspective, even if the contract is a lesser contract, if you have an eye on becoming something akin to the Premier League, at least in terms of success in this market, you can't go to BN Sport. You can't. You have to stay on Fox. You have to stay with the broadcaster that has a legitimate share of the homes. I mean, I don't know.
I would agree, but only if Fox is committed to doing it. Primarily because I do think there's a huge, and if you kind of know the Mexican market, the Bundesliga has always been a solid, let's call it, second to third and a half place league in Mexicans' hearts because of all kinds of historical reasons. And I would just say that, if Fox isn't really committed to it, and that's where I'm saying you give them another year, and I'd say probably a third year. But if you get the same results, no one's really putting any money, and it's not even just money. They're not putting kind of their ability to kind of innovate behind this when they broadcast. They're not doing good pregame and postgame shows. They're not it's not hokey. And because if it stays that way, you're going to get 50,000 people watching it, and that's it. And then it just becomes filler. And then they're not going to raise any money in it. And then eventually it's going to get sold to somebody else. I mean, to be really honest,
at some point,
Univision's. Sorry.
At some point, I gotta let you go, Aaron. But at some point, we are talking about saturation. I mean, we're talking about oversaturation, and there being
it's a great point you bring up. Actually,
more room. I mean, I just can't. Here's the thing. I love that we have all of these options, but there's only so much soccer that this market can take before people start going, well, I got to pick something. And you know what happens? You get a herd mentality. And if the Premier League is more accessible and there's a cultural connection between the U.S. and England, that's going to drive interest there in a way that goes beyond the soccer, beyond soccer and that element.
You bring up a great point, which I know you got to run, but it's the fact that, and I was thinking about this just really in the last week or two, is just we are reaching this kind of massive, like binary switch from almost nothing available to kind of everything available. If you go anywhere else in the world, you just don't get actually this much football available this cheaply. Basically, if you subscribe to any one of the decent providers and buy one of their sports packages for $20 a month, you kind of get like 10, 15 leagues, and you're not paying like one-off per league like you do in most other countries.
No.
And fancy satellite providers and all that stuff, which kind of keeps you, honed in.
Yeah.
And I totally agree that you do run into this fundamental problem where 3, 4, 5 networks that are kind of broadcasting everything.
Yeah, I have a theory too. I mean, again, we live in a consumer society. You give the people what they want, but I have this theory or this inkling of a theory that I haven't really fleshed out. That is, because the soccer is so available, and because it comes from so many different places with so many different influences coming down on American soccer, it makes it harder, not easier, harder for American soccer to develop. And it's it's shades of gray, and you can have a discussion over whether or not the word harder even applies, but it definitely changes the nature of development of an independent and wholly contained soccer culture in our country. Period. And
and you're totally right. The one thing I would say is that MLS, I think this year has a great chance to really take a leap, because I think the effort that the major broadcasters are putting in is very different this year than it was in prior years.
We shall see.
And you just see it.
Aaron, I'm sorry to cut you off, man. It's a great discussion as always. Got to run.
Thank you.
There goes Aaron in Jersey. Always a good call. Thank you to Washington. Aaron, Nelly, Al. Thank you to Charlie Boehm for his contributions today on the MLS season getting underway yesterday. 10 games, man. Wow. Now, if you thought we didn't give enough attention to any one of those particular games, make sure you check out SiriusXM, FC Channel 85. That's where we'll do it more in depth, etc., etc. Thanks again. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.